All right, welcome to the City Council Budget and Special Projects Committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, March 25th. Item number 1, call to order. I call this meeting to order. Item number 2, ordinance declaring a 365-day moratorium on the acceptance of applications for processing and issuance of building permits that would allow construction on or use of property for data centers located in the city of Tulsa, provided for an exception and an appeal process, providing effective and repeal dates. This carries the emergency clause.
Can I just jump in with some? Sure. After getting, we had a really rich discussion last time, and so I wanted to kind of offer, one to maybe 2 modifications and get your all's feedback on it and hopefully go to a vote tonight, since I think this is somewhat time sensitive. We're going to a vote tonight. But what I wanted to say up front, since at the end of or in the middle of our last committee meeting, we mentioned about data centers and fear. To me, this is about being fact-based, not fear-based, and acknowledging that this is an industry that's all around us. It's here anyway. It's just about updating our zoning code. So what I would propose after, listening to a lot of folks' feedback, and also seeing that even if I don't quite agree with this approach, I think it's a compromise. I think I'm gonna be adding in, and I have an amended draft to exempt phase 2 of Anthem as well, which defining that's a bit tricky because it's not kind of a firm concept. Kind of the language I have here is that it shall not apply to an additional data center project, which then says project Anthem phase 2 located on 300 acres or less if it were appropriately zoned within the property that is subject of NPD 6 approved as amended by the council on March 11th, 2026. I'll make sure you all get, of course, a copy of that. But that is all to say that this way, since that's still in the rezoning process, and I know that that's something Councilor Lakin voiced, was like, hey, this is still in a process. I know that some folks, like a lot of that company reached out or sat down with several of us, and maybe people are considering, going and visiting a data center with the generator shut off in Dallas or what have you, which, I don't want to discount doing that. That's just one company, and I know other ones may be trying to come in and they all potentially are using different tech or it's shifting. So I do still think a pause is very important. I still think that phase 2 is not necessarily a given just because I know it's in the middle of a zoning process, but I'll respect that there's that civic process carrying out, which is why I put in an exemption for it as well within this. And then I also had asked Jack to add some updated language, and I thought this was a good suggestion from Councilor Bush, and you mirrored something that Councilor Hall Harper had brought up as an option, since you're the moratorium expert around here, which was, right, making it kind of an up to, going, hey, that's a moratorium up to this many days unless we adjust, we get recommendations and have voted on rezoning prior to that 365 days. So I will pause there, naming that those 2 amendments, which we absolutely, of course, open for discussion, are 1, again, exempting that phase 2 as it's going through a rezoning process, and 2, the up to, instead of just saying 365 days, just going, hey, let's allow for time for there to be that thoughtful investigation and study, and if there's a recommendation and rezone that is forthcoming sooner than that, great, right? But yeah, I'll pause there with those 2 amendments.
Okay, Councilor Archie?
Just a quick clarification,
Yes.
and I appreciate you'll send us the revisions.
Yes.
So you're saying the amended language would be data centers 300 acres or less would be allowed to move forward? It would just be a moratorium?
Just one, it's like one other one in addition to what's already happening. And it would be a moratorium on any other ones that come forward.
So it's not just...
Anything outside Project Anthem.
Basically, it's letting Project Anthem do its thing, acknowledging that it's not my most preferred thing to do, but in acknowledgement of the different perspectives around the table that I know are present, that were voiced last time, and that it's in the middle of a rezoning process. I just thought it made sense to let that sit and do its thing. But the way this is defined, and I'll make sure, of course, that everyone gets that language, and Jack, we can also potentially show some of it on the screen in a minute. I know you're getting access to it. But it really is just making sure that that's carved out and that it's no other ones until we get our zoning code correct.
Okay, so we can't get it up on the screen, but hopefully we can get it in backup before this evening, or we can talk about, or bring
Oh,
it
yeah,
back
we can
at
get
4
it.
o'clock? Okay.
We can put it up, I think.
I don't have it on a way to put it up
Yeah, she
right in
doesn't
this
have it.
minute.
Oh, okay, I apologize, okay. Sorry, this was some, like, thanks for everyone's patience, but yeah, it is, on the plus side, the policy itself is relatively short, and the little amendment is just the language to make sure phase 2 is clear within it, so it's nothing very complex to take a look at prior to voting or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, Counselor, are you done?
Yes,
Counselor-
for now, yeah.
Counselor Dr. Wright?
Thank you. So the 365 gives the planning office the time they need.
Which they may need less.
Right. Did they indicate what they think their timeline might be?
When I first was talking with them, it sounded pretty new, as they've put together, they have an internal working group of
Sure.
experts and they're folding in more, and of course, I think, they want to be able to go through and vet that process. I think they likely think it could occur faster, of course, and get something to our table and go through that process, but just wanted to allow for additional time in the event more was needed. But, they have this as one of their priorities,
Priorities.
yeah.
Okay, so
Like,
it
we
could
sat
go
down early
faster.
on, yeah, yes, it could,
Okay.
yeah.
And if we feel like as a body it's taking too long, we can
We could be like, hey, yeah.
repeal it or
Yeah.
do whatever, but I think it's important, I mean, one of my frustrations, and I think we've talked about that, is just how land is used. Sometimes we go, who decided that should be there? But it was more like, nobody decided it couldn't be there, and that's what it is, and
You
then.
learn the hard way, yeah.
Right, and so I appreciate that we have something in the pipeline. Right now, it's in a largely undeveloped part of town. Obviously, last week, we approved a very comprehensive 30-year plan. And technology will change 25 times before that all comes to pass. But if we can just use this moment while things are kind of all around us in nearby counties, straddling our county, straddling our city, and if we can just get our zoning code to a place where we feel like is balanced, then I think it's wise to give us hopefully less than 365 days, but at least the time that the experts need to inform us. Because what I wouldn't want to happen is what we have seen and we grapple with now as leaders in our communities, this kind of patchwork approach to things that then doesn't really make sense when you zoom out and look at all of it. So I appreciate the amendments that you're offering. I did have a chance to visit with the Anthem folks. I don't think I need to go on a field trip. I do have concerns about, the things that we see across the country.
Yeah.
I have concerns about the rhetoric that the reason people should be looking here to do it is because we have cheap land, cheap water, cheap resource. Like, I don't appreciate that approach.
Yeah,
It's basically like,
no, I want us to have higher self-esteem.
yeah, I want to,
Yeah.
well, we value our community and
Love
even the
yourself
open
first,
land, like I was looking at, over the weekend, or over the last couple of days, Land Legacy had announced, like, they're in a lawsuit because of some land use encroachment, and I chose to move here and raise a family here, and it just bothers me when kind of the selling point is like cheap land, cheap water, low cost of living. It's not a low cost of living for everyone, and we know that, and we see that. So I want us to be mindful. Of course, we are business friendly. We want industry here. We want to diversify. We know we need to, but to do it in a smart, balanced way, I think is really pragmatic. So I support this amended approach and hope that the planning office can make it go faster than 365.
Which I think
Yeah,
they really can.
and it
I
sounds
wanted
like
to-
they've got a running start
Yeah,
already.
I did consider, and initially I had thought about transparently more of a 9-month timeframe. And then after looking more at just out of an abundance of caution in the event we just needed a little more runway, I felt like that way works it up to go a bit higher just in case. Felt a little bit easier to me than going, too short and then coming up against that, especially if it's a voting timeline for us. I was trying to factor in summer, yeah, which again, I don't think it actually necessarily take that long. And they really, from the second this first became a discussion, we initiated, right, that review and that amendment, that they've been working on it. So I think something could really be forthcoming much sooner. But I didn't want to not allow for enough runway, especially knowing, and so many of you verbalized so many of those different types of experts in industries that would be important to consult and take into consideration. And so I wanted to ensure that there was opportunity for that to fully happen, especially since the nuance of this is also that, again, data centers are of so many different sizes and scales. There's some near us right now you would never notice. These like much larger ones are kind of a newer animal relative to this area, but not necessarily the nation, though the speed at which so many of them are coming in is quite dramatic. And I think this will help. The state legislative session will be done probably before this is back at our table, so we'll also be able to wrap our arms around how those changes might impact us as well.
Yeah.
So it allows enough time for that too, which was part of my thinking with allowing a bit more runway if needed.
I gotcha.
I didn't know if
Sit
I
tight.
already raised my hand.
Sit tight.
I really couldn't remember.
Yeah.
I
Don't
seriously,
raise your hand more than once.
Go to city medical.
I didn't raise this
He's
hand.
like,
Do we need?
What
to-
day is it?
Do we need a
I
paramedic?
did.
just like do the Macarena over there. Yeah, there
The
you go.
Jamie thing.
Yeah, the Jamie, is that anyone? Bless his heart, yeah.
Counselor Dr. Wright, did you get your
I did, thank you.
concerns addressed?
Yes.
All right, Counselor Bingle, then Lakin, and then Doug.
Beauty before age, obviously.
Obviously.
So, thank you. Obviously, this didn't happen in the time span that I wanted it to with the developer. I wanted them to do community outreach and engagement long before it happened. So I want to be very transparent about that. I do share some of the same concerns that everybody does. We've already given them an incentive, and there are concerns about the cost to residents on the infrastructure to support these. The city over and over and over is very resilient about industry and things of that nature. This is one of these risks, measured risks in my opinion, where it's an opportunity for both us and the developer to disprove the theories and the things that people see on the internet. I do agree that we don't want to open the floodgates for this type of development, large scale across the city, because water, infrastructure, loads, and all those things are a concern. And so, I'm not an expert on water, I'm not an expert on power consumption use and what that looks like or what those costs are, but I totally agree. Where we've implemented a incentive, they shouldn't get a second bite at the apple by taxing the citizens for the infrastructure for their development. So outside of Anthem, I appreciate us working together on this, because it is a challenge because of MPD 6. I've said this 100 times.
Yeah.
If it would have been my dream, we'd be talking about the $2 billion Veneta Dream Park that was never going to come to fruition anyway, but that's not what's the opportunity here. So people would have come to the table with different oppositions, but I'm just saying, this is not the most glamorous thing that you would hope for as the initial part of a bigger development, but I know in order to get there, to have jobs, to have housing, and to have the things that the much larger plan creates, this is the worst part of it. And so I appreciate you guys going along this path with me.
Counselor Lakin?
God, it's about time.
Yep.
Oh, goodness.
Sorry, I know, it
It's
is.
only halfway, guys.
I know, yeah, we got a long way.
Yeah.
Thank you for making those changes. I would ask, I worry about what we say to businesses that are interested in coming to Tulsa. If we say, we're closed for 365 days, even if it's up to 365 days. I think a lot of people just see that as a year moratorium regardless of what it really could be.
Right.
The way we've done provisions in the past is it seems like we've started on the near side and extended if we needed to in a couple of cases. So I wonder if if you would be open, or if we collectively would be open. I know you're the author, so I'm gonna start with you, but saying a moratorium of 90 days, and then, well,
Okay, sorry. I
yeah, well, I mean,
reserved my gas.
or
Go ahead.
180 days, or whatever whatever the number is that can then be extended. So just like we did with
Yeah.
masks, just like we did with river design overlay, just like we did with other things, it allows us to give people the time to do their work, and if they haven't done the work, then extend it another period of time. Even the curfew, I think we said, we are going to definitely come to the table at this time, rather than saying we can sunset it early, which
Yeah.
I'm fine with sunsetting it early. We always have that prerogative. But we are going to come to the table after 90 days or 100 days, 80 days.
I think even though I understand those comparisons, I think some of those are very different circumstances. Like, for instance, the reason we come back to the table for the curfew is we'd enacted a new law enforcement policy that could have direct impacts on people entering the justice
This
system.
could have
or-
a direct impact
Right.
on our economy.
But there's
For
a lot
one,
of
but
land by
there's-
right. Isn't there a lot of land by right now? Those
This is-
maps you gave us, there's a lot
No,
of land.
this is a
zoned.
moratorium on these drawing permits. I will say.
Oh, yeah.
No data centers at
Yeah,
all.
no, this is, hold up, but I would say, I think it's a bit of a misnomer to say that this doesn't, I understand that there could potentially be a lot of private interest concern about that kind of messaging, but I think that's also incumbent on us as leaders to also be crystal clear. This is one specific industry that we're not even saying no to. We're going, hey, we're still allowing in this a very massive addition of, Project Anthem to go forward. We're also, I think the planning office is likely to come forward sooner, but I'd rather ensure we're upfront allowing for time. I don't think there's harm in that. We're talking about one very specific part of the AI industry, and we're not even saying no to it. We're just saying, let us get our zoning house in order. My concern would just be that, there's so much politicking implicit in some of this and with this industry. And we've seen how heated and really challenging these conversations have been in other communities. And to me, if we're proactively giving ourselves a bit more runway, that may not be necessary. I think we're preventing having multiple interactions that could become more heated and toxic and less fact-based over time, not by us, but just the whole community. If we're going, hey, let's come back every X amount of time to review this, I just want to name, we have seen how deeply challenging and negative and heated and inflammatory these conversations have been. And I am so grateful, like, look at us here right now. That's not how our community is approaching this issue, which is part of why I wanted to proactively discuss this with you all. But I would be concerned, as we've seen it play out with our neighboring communities and across the country, that if we keep inviting this back as a discussion to the table, before the whole, our planning office and that working group and everyone's gotten their time to really ensure there's adequate research and we're having to check back in every X amount of time, I just think it creates space for what could become a much more toxic conversation, to be honest. That was kind of my thinking and approach here.
Yeah, no, I understand that those are good points. Is there any kind of compromise off the 360, up to 365 days? Is there an up to 180 days, given that we really do think planning might be done much more quickly than the 365 days that you've put out there? I mean, you're saying
Yeah.
this stuff, I don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
because I haven't talked to planning, and planning's still not.
Yeah, and I'd be curious what other people think as well, just about the
Well,
time,
I'd be interested,
if that's okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to like open the floor with that, but.
Right, but what about, instead of adjusting the timeline, the sunset clause, what about inserting reporting dates?
Would that cover what
So that way, we get monthly
I'm-
updates
I'm
from
hearing more though that
that
that's like almost
working
like a
group.
PR concern of if you say something.
Oh, no, there are
I'm
two
just trying-
things. I mean, yes, there is that element that's going to be reported, hey, Tulsa is not doing, there's a
It's not
moratorium
open
for
for
1 year.
business.
Period, that's what people are going to hear and read, which may or may not be the case, depending on what
Well,
kind
safe.
of work we do around this table in between now and that 365-day time. It just, the past indicates what we could do, which is come to the table and decide to extend, rather than saying, let's extend as far as we can and then we can sunset early.
Well,
It's
I mean, we
not
could do
always how we, I know,
The
I
state
know we
level
can.
3 years were proposed by, was it, I don't remember, is it Representative Kendall Cherries?
Yeah.
Yeah, she proposed 3 years. To me, this is
Well,
like trying to do a.
I
And that
would,
one died.
I would
Oh,
say
yeah.
to your question, that I would hope that we're getting updated every month or every 2 months or whatever, just around this table in the committee room, on what kind of progress we're making, and we're providing input
Yeah.
into the process too. I hope planning is saying, you know, either in this room or in another room or whatever, what is it that you want to incorporate into this? I hope we're having conversations with water, I hope we're having in stormwater, so that we can understand the full scope and impact of all those things. But I'd rather cause us, with all of your comments, as heavily weighted as I could in the last 4 minutes, and I think they're all in play, to say, yeah, those are great points, we don't need to revisit this every 90 days, but is there something in between now and 365 days? 180 days, or something like that, that would cause us to come to this table and actually take, not to this table, the one downstairs, and take action that would say, you know what, we're not done, or, yeah, we are done, after this 180 days or something less, and then we can implement the changes to the planning policy and move on. 365 seems like a lot.
Fair.
But if we add to the ordinance, adding the
Report back.
reporting back to us
Yeah,
on
we
a
could do that
monthly-
just to, which I think we all wanna do that kind of learning.
Oh,
So I'm totally
100%.
amenable to like hey, let's have, I don't know if part of me almost wants to think maybe every other month. I'm just thinking about the pace that some of that work actually happens in our committee schedules, and it's,
60 days or.
yeah, maybe every 60 days, we get a progress update, just so we can, that's.
As long as we have a chance to input on the front end.
Yes.
I don't want the first report after we do this 2 months. We have to hear from planning, and we have to be
Yes.
able to say, hey, here's some questions.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Ms. Davis, do you?
Oh, just in addition to whatever frequency you decide at committee for reporting, we do have 2 staff members who are on this staff working group, so we can also ask them to write a little paragraph report or something just on an update on that, like
Okay.
monthly. So you have that, but then you can have the planning at the table whenever you want. I wasn't sure if everybody was aware that we had staff members on that working group.
I didn't know that there was a
Yeah, I
working
think,
group.
I don't know that we all know the full.
It is on a
details,
there's a planning office is putting together stakeholders, the experts in this. I think they are looking at the people who work in our water area. There's council staff, but they're still collecting those people on a staff level for this.
Okay. Counselor Bengal, did you have something in?
Yeah, I was just
follow?
gonna say, between the, conversation between the two of you, your points are valid, and obviously Counselor Lakin's point is valid. There feels like a compromise in there that if you put, and I'm not advocating one way or the other, so I'm just making a point. I think by putting a 365 day on it, it kind of gives it an over lengthy runway that might feel like you could just put this off for an entire year.
Which is not what we're.
Right? But that, I think by putting a reporting or cutting it in half, and like Counselor Lakin said, we can always come back and extend it further if there's still more time needed as part of this working group. But it does set a threshold for expectation that by this certain date, we would know one way or the other where we stand on this, whether we need to continue, could extend this another 6 months or whatever the case may be. Because most of the things that I was talking about, like House Bill 2992, that they're working on, I support that. So by that time, the legislative process would have already played out on most of this stuff. I don't know if that 3-year moratorium died. Did that bill die?
It died,
Okay.
yeah, it did.
This is
So that's
the
what I'm
one that's
saying.
alive.
This at least gives us,
Yeah.
some
'Cause-
insight as to what the requirements are from the state surrounding this, because it's obviously at their level too, so.
That's where I was kind of thinking where, you know, you have legislative session, it'll end by the end of, you know, May.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm always thinking of all the special sessions we always have.
Yeah.
And then in my head, we love to do that.
What
And
if
then
we just take this to December, so it's on the calendar year?
just to decide, so that would be like the 9 months, which I'm not unamenable to, and then we could always, if we need to extend, with 9, yeah.
With these 60-day check-ins, so that we, if it looks like it's wrapping up sooner, we can always sunset it earlier.
And then if we need to extend it, we could, which I mean, maybe, which again, we may not need to. My thought had been, okay, get through the legislative session, let people have time to do all their investigative research, that's gonna be just around the corner, happen faster than we think it will. Then you do have just calendars.
Well, the summer is a
Schedule-
little
Yeah, the
hard to
summer
schedule.
gets tricky, but I think it's
We don't
very
even need
feasible.
that much.
I think the 9 months at least gives us the right kind of like fall runway to get something up to a vote, you know, before then, so that's not, I think, out of the question.
Yeah, Counselor Dutton.
Yeah, so personally, I'm completely opposed to the data centers in general. And that if you look at the maps of where they can be located, it's primarily District 3 and District 6, as well as the north side of Tulsa. I understand the concept and idea that there's more land mass out there, but the economic data with data centers does not support that they are a revenue generator for the city as a whole. And I think that it would benefit Northeast Tulsa if we had shopping corridors, kind of like Shields benefits the city of Tulsa tax revenues as well as Woodland Hills Mall, and they're bigger employers. And so I think that with that caveat, that the idea that they are impactful to economies, I think, is a misnomer for sure. And I think there's also environmental justice, injustice issues we need to talk about. And that I think these are all areas that we really need further research, and that the counselors that would affect the most would be Counselor Bengal, Counselor Vanessa Hall Harper, and myself. And I don't know how you would feel if you had a data center in your backyard, or how you would feel if you had a data center in your backyard. And I think that has to be a consideration, that the locations in the various districts are so far removed from where these data centers will be located, and we don't know what the impact is for those local residents in those areas where the data centers are going to be. We also are not aware that in 2 years' time, they're going to need all that land mass like they do today. And then what happens to all of the equipment that was used to stand up the data centers? And I just think that we don't have enough information in regards to environmental injustices, as well as the Cherokee Nation is going to do their own study, which the data anthem is going into Cherokee Nation District 13, I believe. And so I think it would be helpful if we were also to include, since it's on Cherokee land as well, information that they can provide on impacts to the farm land and area around there. And I guess I'm challenged by the factors that are not known with data centers and the environmental impact, as well as the fact that they're not going to be bringing in tons of jobs and people that are going to be investing like you would in a home development area where people are going to be buying homes, paying taxes, shopping. It's a whole different revenue that is not conducive to our tax base.
If it's helpful, I have the planning office's like tentative timeline that I just, if that's helpful to the conversation for folks. So I can-
Yeah, let's,
Yeah. Oh, sorry, big.
that's okay.
I didn't
I
cut
just,
you off.
I
Sorry.
did have a couple more points. In that, I believe 82% of the data centers are absolutely going into rural areas where you have disenfranchised communities. And I think that needs to be considered as well. And it makes me think of the Flint water crisis And the fact that they had lead in these communities in their pipes, that was known for a long time, and it took forever to get that replaced. And that environmental impact is not something that we're even aware might happen with data centers. So that's, I'm finished. I'm for the moratorium, the 365. That's just
Okay,
my
thank you.
opinion.
And you want to go ahead and give that?
Yeah, just so folks know,
Timeline out.
this is a tentative one, I know there's, a lot of the dates aren't necessarily definite, but they do have themselves being ready to, put stuff into like TMAPC, around September and work through our body in around October, November is what they're showing. So that is about that 9-month time frame where they have, they're already meeting every other week. And then they're starting to convene, developers and et cetera, do some kind of, or they have, it looks like that they're planning to midsummer to kind of do a summary report to TMAPC as well. Like they have like this whole kind of process working on, again, just looking at a tentative
Laura,
timeline.
did they tell you what the structure or the composition of that working group
I do not
is?
know yet, which I also think is a great opportunity for us as we, embark on creating the time for this to happen. We can always, my thought would be maybe having them, either send us whatever that one pager is about, who that is, us being able to offer all of our input, because I know there's so many different industries or people that would be important stakeholders to have at the table. And so, I know they've been convening those internal folks, and I can see that they've started to go, okay, this is when we need to start engaging these developers or this or that, but I think it's, upfront, we can make sure that we're sending them those experts. And also, I think this does allow for, while we're having those public discussions optimally, the Project Anthem people, maybe they do decide to do some public town halls outside of, that are also helping educate the public as well.
Right.
They seemed, in my conversation with them, moderately amenable to doing that. Yeah.
Ms. Davis?
So just the scope of this working group is regarding the land use.
Mhm.
And so while data centers have a lot of stakeholders and they may reach out and talk to them, their working group's gonna be really confined to people who deal with land use. And so I just wanted to make sure that was kind of clear there as to why you may
I have
not
you.
see different representatives on, it's a very staff kind of technical working group on that.
So this isn't centric to data centers as a whole?
Well, the moratorium's just is on land use and a recommendation on zoning code.
Okay,
land
because
use.
that was
Yeah.
my
So-
understanding.
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
This would be a fully encompassed under, kind of moratorium that allowed time for us to understand that as a whole.
I
right?
think for
Because
us
when I
at this
proposed
table,
this
well, they're,
initially
yeah,
as being its own zoning code,
which I think,
right? Outside of any other pre-existing zoning, this was something that because it was a new type of development, it was going to require us to constantly and potentially come back for amendment to it.
I think, per your point, I think I'm kind of viewing this as a yes and, where, as Sarah just mentioned, what's happening internally for planning, and this is their piece of it, and part of why the pause and, what we're trying to build up to is just, from the land use perspective, what is the appropriate place for our code, and having some of its own for what you've described, its own definitions that are needed, especially for different size and scale. And I think simultaneously, as we try to understand, because I know when we vote at this table and we're voting on zoning issues, we're taking into account all those public health and welfare pieces. I do think it creates that opportunity for us to go, let's make sure we're simultaneously, while they're looking at land use and of course reporting and sharing information with us, that we can simultaneously, and I'm happy to help, ensure that there's steady information coming to us, which could happen in a few different formats, which I can work through with Sarah, because I'm guessing she, but I'm just thinking about structurally, make sure that we're getting, per your point, getting some more of that broader information that we'll be considering, because I know it's incumbent on us to think about community, both the economic factor, community health and welfare, and so much else. So I think, to me, I see these things happening in tandem, but since the core of why the moratorium's around that zoning piece, and that is just updated as a zoning code, I know that's what they'll be deep diving on, per Sarah's point, but I do think at this table, in some fashion, we can make sure that we're also getting more robustly educated by all of those different types of experts across the spectrum of that industry.
Counselor Dr. Wright, did you have something else, or did you say it
No, it was
earlier?
just maybe halfway between 6 months and 12 months
Yeah.
is 9 months.
Yep. Okay.
Which happens to be
What we-
December 31st, 2026.
Yep, okay. Counselor Archie?
Yeah, so, part of that, part of my original question was answered about actually figuring out how much time the planning office needed. And so you're saying the end of the year would be
Yep, so
what
that's,
they would.
yeah, we're just gonna do this like it's a pregnancy.
Then, but then, there you go.
Just gestate this for a
Every
little
time.
while.
But the other, I guess the other question I have for whomever can answer, maybe this is Sarah. At the end of 6 months or 9 months for 365 days, what exactly is planning office going to
So,
put on the table? I feel like maybe
so we'll get
this,
something on the table before that time, just to be clear. The like 9 to 12 months or whatever concept is that's the point by we'd actually have voted on a new zoning
so
code.
the expectation is they'll bring forward a recommendation for a new zoning
We'll have-
category for,
We'll have to see how they.
Or no
modify
change.
it.
or no change?
Got
They're
it.
in a study
Yeah, what
period,
I-
so they would
We
make
don't
a
know what they would
recommendation
bring.
as the
Right.
appropriate land use based on their study
That's-
Yeah,
period.
what I,
That's, yeah,
'cause
that's what I was hoping.
what I am thinking is, at the end of the 9 months,
We have a brand new data center.
we,
Just kidding.
through, I'm just trying to figure out through zoning, through
Just a little
planning's
bit.
process, how much are we actually gonna learn about data centers versus the land use?
Well, that's why I was just verbalizing that we can make sure that happens.
So the moratorium on data centers, planning office is not working specifically on data centers. We are gonna be
They
working on
are.
it. Well,
They're working on land, their
Right.
lens and their
use.
job is it what's appropriate land use for data centers?
okay.
So,
And they will consider an
Right now,
array of
'cause it's like
factors.
for IL.
Yeah.
If
And
I
they're
might-
thinking about it be IM. That's
Say-
what
say-
they need.
say that again?
Yeah, it's this, we have another item on, so I wanna control this as much as possible.
Start controlling it now? Yeah.
Well, I mean, so is it something that,
yes, it has to do with zoning and land use and the fact that a lot of this rural area where these data centers are wanting to go are actually not in the bigger plans for the area when they're zoned residential or they're zoned for other purposes that aren't industrial heavy. So I think that's the focus, is that we want to maintain the integrity of what the zoning is and still allow for shopping corridors that might actually be, or office light, you know, that would be helpful.
Economically.
Yeah, and that would also respect the land use in general for zoning.
But yeah, I think just to reiterate though, it is that twofold where the zoning office has their specific lens that does consider an array of factors that we all definitely want to know and consider here. However, for instance, some of those economic pieces that I know are top of mind for so many of us, though, I think industry-wise, just want our city to, we deserve the best. Let's have some self-esteem
Yeah.
about who we're chasing. We could be picky, but anyway, but I was gonna say, like, some of those other factors are not necessarily within their purview, nor would they consider in land use, and that's where we're gonna have to make sure that those things that are outside of their more immediate sphere of interest, control, et cetera, we're making sure we're also educating ourselves on at the table. Which I think there's absolutely those experts locally and nationally that we can draw on to do that. It's just being intentional, to me, it's more about time management, doing it more than anything else. But we can absolutely make that happen within, I think, a 9-month timeframe for sure, if, again, not sooner.
you done? Okay, Counselor Lakin?
Yeah, I do think that we've said this. I just want to emphasize one thing. You said something related just to the economic benefits, and maybe they're absent. I do want to incorporate that element into the planning and the research that we do over the next 9 months,
agree.
because there is the franchise fee increase that we will receive just through the transmission of power through those lines, and I understand it to be $1 to $1.5 million per distribution center. So that's a material number. But I want to verify that number is accurate, because I don't know how much power is going through the line today versus 10 years from now. Same thing, just as we're analyzing that, what increases do we have on the property taxes? So if we put a $400 million building on a piece of property that's, valued at, let's say, 0 right now, do we really get to assess property taxes on that $400 million? Some of which come to the city, a lot of which go to the county, and a lot of which go to the TTC, TCC, and the
Right,
public school
that's
systems.
provided the state question to
Yeah,
ballot in November.
but I think those are all integral to us understanding what the balance is, because there are those offsets of which you've already pointed out. There's the noise issues, there could be the environmental issues, then there's the economic issues, and how do those all play together as we fully understand
Yeah.
this? So,
Yeah, and we're
to the
gonna-
extent that we can not just look at the planning, but look at.
I agree.
Okay,
To that point, I would just,
Yeah.
I would just also want to know what the incentive package initially looks like, as opposed to those things that you're talking
Well,
about.
we can see the one that already exists
Yeah.
right now.
oh, yeah, no, that's a,
Right. So
right.
the comparison,
You gotta
I think,
net it
would
out.
be good, yeah, would be good
Yeah,
for
you
the
get
public to
this, but you
understand.
gave
Right,
this.
Right.
Yep.
Do you remember, do you still have that sheet that I gave out last
Oh,
week?
yeah, I remember he had it in the backup from last
Yeah.
week. That laid out some of those numbers.
I,
Yeah.
I probably do,
Okay.
Oh, is
Right
it still,
here at
it's
the
still in
bottom.
this time sheet,
Yeah.
yes.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's true, there are some of those numbers, but for your point, I hear you about like that trade-off of, hey, we offer this, but we're getting this. And I know a big part of it's also the infrastructure, so,
Yeah, so I appreciate that.
yeah, yeah. Which I think on the plus side, it seems like it's, that's for sure coming. I know, not because of this, but just because of the zoning process separately, phase 2 is a bit in the balance regardless, but I'm under the understanding that we still will have at least these initial benefits of the infrastructure, et cetera, from phase 1 coming in, from all of the, yeah, yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
so we'll just have whatever we've discussed circulated to us so that we know what we're voting on before we get
Yeah,
down
and
there.
I'll say the 9.
Mr.
Well, I just
Blair?
want to read it back to you to confirm.
Yes, I think it's what you handed me at the beginning of the meeting.
Well,
That's my magic.
So, in addition to exempting Project Anthem Phase 2 within MPD 6 and providing for the potential to end early if the review is wrapped up early, up to 270 days, so December 31st, 2026, and then 60-day reports from the planning office in committee.
Yes.
Or can we just say up to or until December 31st, rather than 270 days?
Sure, yes.
Oh, yeah, that's
Is
fine.
that,
Yeah, that's
Yeah, December
fair.
31st, yeah.
yeah.
That's better.
Right,
Yeah,
because the mayor's
then
gonna have to
it's-
sign
That's
it.
more
Right.
clear.
It is
Yeah.
December.
There'd be a timing.
We don't know.
No, that's more clear. Okay, so, yeah, I think.
We'll just give ourselves to the end of the year,
End of the year, yeah.
but it's like when it's signed.
I
Me too.
agree with that, the December 31st, yeah.
Sure.
That's pretty
Yep,
clear.
That all sounded good.
I will
Be having the baby.
email that to everyone, send it to Lori and Sarah, and
Yeah.
get it in backup.
Thank you.
Okay.
We are voting, yeah,
And
voting
we'll
tonight.
let you make we'll let you make the motion.
This is your baby.
But no, thank you all so much for everyone's good faith engagement around this and just being, I appreciate all of us being really intentional and thoughtful and as proactive as we can with this policy, because I know this is like a heated policy environment topic. And I just want to say, actually, I think, and I'm hopeful for tonight, that I think we're setting a model as a city about how to proactively and very in a balanced way approach this, compared to, again, some of the things that we've seen literally just kind of
Nationally.
across the country, so. Good,
It's
I'm
not so
proud of
far away
our
either.
discussions, yeah.
Well, as I said earlier in the last meeting, it takes teamwork, so good job. Yeah, thank you.
Speaking of teamwork, we have 5 minutes to discuss 5 charter amendments.
2:30,
All
right?
right,
35 minutes.
we have 35 minutes.
5 minutes per charter amendment.
Yeah, okay. Moving, any other discussion on item 2? Everyone got out what they wanted? Okay. Item number 3, city council discussion regarding possible selection of charter amendments.
So counselors, in front of you, these are the 5 charter amendments that, 4 of which were discussed last time that we've been asked to put on the agenda. They're in, just in the order received, I believe. but you're welcome to discuss them in whatever order you would like to discuss them. And so the first one on there is longevity pay, if you want to start there, but you don't have to start there.
And we can start with longevity. So, we, myself, Counselor Dr. Wright and Counselor Bush, met with police and fire again earlier this week to discuss this, because the last time we talked about it, we talked about a possible floor. And whether or not we needed to include that. So there's been discussion about keeping the floor, taking the floor out, and then also discussion about when this actually when it starts. But right now with the longevity, it's for existing officers up to 20 years. Once they hit that 20 years, they don't get steps after that or longevity pay. So we're wanting to, as a recruiting tool, this is brought up in our retreat before to keep officers longer. So whether we keep it as moving it up to 25 or 30 years. So.
Last time we met, there was general consensus to take it to 30, so we just need to confirm that. And then we did ask Jack to
Give us-
provide some language, so maybe to soften the fiscal impact, to do like, 20,
ramp up.
25, then 30, so we're not absorbing all of that in the first year that it triggers. And there is obviously fiscal impact, but in our discussion as a working group, part of why you do this is to retain, so you don't have that cost of replacement or cost of the amount of overtime that we're doing right now, because we're not necessarily recruiting and retaining at the pace that we should be, and we're hoping that this and the SBI proposal will help balance that out. It also helps us budget more consistently if we, it's all subject to negotiation, but we can plan knowing that it's in the charter, that the citizens approved it. We can, in our budget, plan for it, knowing that the negotiations will either solidify it or be something different. We did get explained to us, so if you'll remember, the language right now says $7.50. We talked about why that is not relevant to today's negotiations. Counselor Bush and I were kind of raising the thought that if we redline that, we have to be able to tell the constituency why we're taking that out, right? So as long as we have good language for stating that it doesn't mean that we're taking it away, it just means it's totally irrelevant because it was set in 1968. I think we feel better after talking with leadership this week that if we redline that out, we have a way to talk about it. I think they said it right now, it's at $450 for every year.
Right.
So I think Counselor Lincoln, you had made the point, like, they're always gonna start the negotiation where they are and move forward.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's my
mean,
understanding, just based upon
Yeah.
how I negotiate.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
I
that
think
benchmark is the starting place.
$750 and work their way up.
You don't go
Right.
backwards?
Right, so the
Yeah.
$7.50 is totally irrelevant, it's outdated, and we did kind of go around the bend of like doing a percentage, but that's very complicated, so. Subject to negotiation is the language,
Right.
yeah. So I think we just need to know from you all, is a general consensus on the 30, and then for what do you call that, staggered triggers or whatever, to have that language where it's like in year one, it would be to 25, in year two, or if we did want to not have an absorption, I think.
Feels like it's
I think
better
right
to do
now it
that
would be like $1 million
phased in.
out the door, and then closer to like 350 every year after that, so.
How many years are you suggesting now?
I think over
For
3.
the stages?
Was it over 3?
It's 3.
I haven't heard
Here.
what you'd like to do.
Oh.
That 10 years is, it's hard to, can you do 4 and it's 2?
I don't know.
I don't know what the
Chris
number is.
Chris
Five.
Kaufman had
Maybe
requested
2.
some,
There were several options
2 years
that
at a
Jack
time.
sent over from fiscal year blank through fiscal year blank. The longevity pay allowance shall not be increased after 20 years of service. And then from fiscal year blank to fiscal year blank, the longevity pay allowance, close, shall not be increased after 25 years of service. And then the next one shall not be
just-
increased after 30 years of service.
So it'd be a 3-year fiscal,
Okay.
It's a
Right?
little easier.
It can be,
Yeah.
however you'd like to stretch that out.
I think, I don't know
Yeah, I think
if
it's either
everyone
gotta
got
be
the
like
chart.
3 or 5.
Did you
in order to
see the
balance out.
chart, the dollar amount chart that was circulated? If we do nothing and just go to 30, I think it's about, just under $1 million.
Yeah.
So this would kind of pace us a little bit.
Oh, that's a different.
Hang on.
I think it was sent by email by Sarah.
Yeah, oh, no. That's SBI.
Oh, that's the one that I.
The one they sent us was an Excel spreadsheet with 3 tabs.
This thing, but that's SBI.
But you only have one of the tabs, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
I think
Sorry.
Sarah sent it maybe yesterday or the day before.
And around 6:30 or 7 PM.
Last night.
Last night?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, maybe we can get a, so in the body of the email from Commissioner Roberts, the spreadsheet was SBI, in the body of the email
Yeah,
is the
just
longevity.
SBI though, right?
In the body of the email from Commissioner Roberts, so it's 1.254 is the estimated total fiscal impact of the 30-year on year one. About 900,000 for police and about 350 for fire. So if we scale it, but the other thing is, there's more people at 20 to 25 years than there are from 25 to 30. Right, because there's that natural kind of attrition.
That's why we're thinking of the stair step.
Yeah.
Step.
Oh, yeah, no, it's still just a,
The big
it's just a
impact.
big number, yeah.
It is, but if you
But
compare.
I mean,
Yeah, but if
I
you compare
understand.
that number to the overtime that
Overtime,
we pay, it's a
yeah.
lot less,
Yeah.
right? Comparatively.
Which is what we're trying to
Mhm.
mitigate, plus recruiting.
Turnover and the turnover at the
Mhm.
they told us if we retain to 7 years, then they're pretty much gonna stay in for the most part, which kind of ties to the SBI conversation. Because the SBI really factors in year 1 to 10.
Sounds like military thinking.
Yeah, it's kind of like the military pay
Yep.
structure.
Because that's kind of how, that's kind of the thought process
Trying to
around
be helpful.
recruiting is
Oh,
that
no, I
once you reach a
appreciate
certain
it.
point,
You're
you're
in.
usually committed to
Yeah.
that as a career.
Yeah. So,
Vesting. Vesting.
yeah, exactly.
Might as well.
So what do you need from us on these?
So I heard strike the floor, subject to negotiation, and the cap phased over X fiscal years.
Do we want to do 3 fiscal? 3, okay.
3 fiscal years.
That gives Jack something to put in the draft. Because the next time we meet, we're voting on this, right, on the 15th?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussions on longevity?
So 3-year phased, 30-year cap.
No,
Is
yes,
that- Is that right?
yes.
Okay,
And take out the 750,
yeah.
the base.
The base, yeah.
It's outdated.
That's $7.50.
As they said, if they collectively bargain below that, they got bigger issues.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, right, yeah.
Well, they don't, we do.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, next one is satisfactory performance increase SPIs for public safety officers. Anybody want to talk about that one?
Does anyone have questions about it? I mean, we presented it last time. It's basically the bookend to the longevity pay in terms of recruitment, retention efforts. There was a one-page brief provided to you to kind of show that from a fiscal responsibility standpoint, making the investment on those steps should, obviously subject to negotiation, the revenues have to be there, the negotiation determines the steps, but letting the voters confirm that, yes, we want this codified in our charter kind of takes what has happened over the last 20 years, I would say, where SBI has been heavily negotiated to the point where there's been many, many times where they don't get it at all. And that is very difficult on the younger public safety officers. And both chiefs confirmed for us that that is kind of one of the challenges, right? They're doing a recruiting effort, and then it's like, well, we said that there was this opportunity to like have satisfactory performance increases, but, and that has been an ongoing barrier.
I got a, oh, please, go
Whatever.
ahead.
Counselor Lakin, sorry, I was looking down reading, not looking up, so.
I saw
Counselor
that.
Lakin.
So this one, just from the standpoint of just trying to be fiscally responsible, we've seen the numbers of this costing $6 to $6.7 million extra a year. I don't know how sustainable that is, given that it's going to be something that's absolute, and I know there are some limitations on it being absolute, but it is saying that if you look historically, that you're almost guaranteed a 4% raise every single year, when our budgets have been growing about 2% or a little bit less than 2%. So we get into a situation, at least based upon the modeling that finance did, where right now we're using, according to their data, about the police and fire salaries use 80-ish% of all of the sales and use taxes. In 13 years, their budget, if we implemented this, would be 100% of the sales and use taxes. So it does have a very material effect.
How much of the unexpended unappropriated fund balances are they using?
I don't
for
know, I mean,
overtime?
we can,
No, we've been talking about overtime for the last 8 years.
yeah, but this isn't gonna solve overtime.
It will help.
It's gonna add $6 million to our budget, plus we're going to still have those overtime elements.
It
And this
should
kind
reduce
of,
overtime if we can retain and recruit people
I have to
in.
have that, I haven't had that proven, and this is one of those things that never comes back. This is, you're almost guaranteed a 4% raise every year, which I would do for any of my employees, and if I did it for any employees, I would do it for all employees. Here, we're just focusing in on sworn. And I
Well,
think
the non-sworn get SBI too. I mean, we
Out
can
there.
add, correct, but we
But-
could add that element.
But I would never in my life say that everybody in this building is guaranteed a 4% raise, just from a prudent standpoint. We have to,
Where is this language saying that? What this language is saying, when
That's-
the revenues are there, subject to negotiations on the contracts. But what they do
Then-
right now is there's been many, many years where there's not an SBI. And so it's really hurting that 0 to 10-year public safety officer. It affects their back end on their retirement too, right?
Oh.
So those first 10 years, I mean, if we're gonna do longevity and keep people in, they're staying past 20, they're just not getting the boost. This is saying, we recognize you're staying past 20, we don't think it's fair that you're not getting the boost, we'll take it to 30. On the front end,
right, I
though-
get the longevity element.
Correct.
I'm not standing in the way.
And longevity does kick in year 3. But the steps have just been subject to negotiation in a way that no other city in this state has been doing.
Yeah, but steps are typically or historically 4%. That's just what the historical information says.
By negotiation, right?
Yeah, that's how it's, right. So if that is codified, if they just automatic 4% raises,
It
then,
doesn't say automatically 4%.
Where
It's
does it-
subject to negotiation.
then why are we changing anything? How are we changing anything if it's subject to negotiation?
So you were saying if it can't be 4%, it could be 2%. It means that we're going to
No,
negotiate.
2% is our economic growth. So every year we're missing 2%.
So then the negotiators won't negotiate 4, they'll negotiate 2, but there will be a step. Right now, they're just saying no steps for many years on end, or sometimes steps at the top that
Right,
don't make
because
it to the
because the
beginning
budget
phase.
can't support that and the non-sworn and the other things that we have beyond personnel. So you have to, I know you know this, you have to throw everything into the budget. If this thing is codified, if it's a must be, this is the charter. You must do the step increases, the SPI increases. Then everything else is
It says shall,
more
not must.
limited.
says
Shall and
shall.
must are the same thing.
It does not say must, and it says receive one step pay
If
increase.
it says shall, it says must.
Yes, but subject to negotiation is still in there. This is not the charter language.
Yeah, I don't see it.
It's in what we
Then-
provided last
Then
time.
what are we doing? Everything already is subject to negotiation.
Same thing with longevity pay.
No, this is increasing the cap from 20 to 30.
But longevity pay is also subject to negotiation in the revenues.
Well, yeah, but not beyond the 20. It doesn't really
Right.
matter what you negotiate. So we're,
Up to 20 still, even right
Right.
now.
right. This gives me great pause because we're not able to budget the way we could and should, and we're also taking maybe some opportunities away from the mayor's office during their negotiations that are causing them to do X for the sworn employees, where we may not be able to do X for the sworn employees, taking some of those resources potentially probably away from the non-sworn. And they're, according to the projections, going to use more of the sales and use taxes, up to 100% in 13 years. And it's still the raw data that was circulated, $6 million worth of additional monies that have to be found in the next year for this. I don't know where that $6 million is.
Factoring in that less outlay, if you're retaining and recruiting more people and holding on to them and not losing them to other career paths or nearby municipalities, so we're recruiting and training them and then they dip out where they can get growth in their salaries. This is what's happening right now. So, I mean, we
Can I
talk
ask
about
a question?
recruitment and
Are
retention,
you
but if
what
we're not
is
gonna
that?
invest in how to
Is that on
recruit and
current
retain, I don't
staffing,
know.
Or is that on
Six-
authorized strength?
6.1 on current, 6.6 or 6.7 on authorized student.
Yeah, so what would that look like if we actually did get to authorized staffing levels?
Yeah, it's about $600,000 more.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't think we'll ever get to authorized levels if we can't tell people coming in that you're gonna progress in your career and
Never
earn
been
more
an
today than
authorized.
you did when you came in.
At least on
I
the
don't,
lease.
I just don't know, I don't know of other institutions where they say that, hey, look, every year you're gonna get a 4% raise. And I know there are some subject to elements to
Yeah,
this,
absolutely.
but there aren't very many, and we're leaving an entire group of people out of this. And
I mean,
I've
if you
just-
wanna argue to put the non-sworn into a union that gets to negotiate and solidify contracts, I think you would see a lot of support from the council, certain parts of the council on that. I mean, I agree that they should be able to negotiate as well. I don't appreciate that every time we have a budget, I'm not saying this to you directly, but when we have a budget negotiation, it turns into sworn versus non-sworn. It puts us in a terrible position.
I think this adds more emphasis to the fact that there are two different groups of people, though. If we're just saying 4% roughly, or SPI increases for one group, and we didn't do anything for the other group at all, and.
Well, that's not what I'm trying to imply. I mean, I'm
I'm
trying to
just
do a
bringing up-
bookend to the longevity. I would love to make sure that our non-sworn get their steps too. I think it, subject to availability of resources. We set the priorities. I say it every budget year, we have the dollars, we have to decide how we want to spend them. Oftentimes, they're going to things that
And that's where
are
I'm.
not the priority for everyone.
And that's where I'm getting with all of this. We take some of that latitude away. If we're already saying, okay, we must do this because it's a charter provision, then we don't have the ability to do what we have to do now, which is appropriate those balances across various elements, because it will be codified that we have to give X to this particular SPI increase for sworn-only employees.
So do you want to open it to non-sworn, or you just don't want to do it at all, and we just recruit people, tell them that you may
I
get
think we
a
can- I
performance
think we can go-
increase if and when we prioritize it?
We can go forward with charter amendments whenever we want to. We don't have to do it just this summer when we're slated to do it. I think this particular one needs a lot more time to study impacts, just so that I can get comfortable with it, before we say to the voters, hey, once it's done on this. There's no coming back, and I really do think that it
Charter
takes.
amendments could be amended as well.
No,
That's what
there
we're
are
doing.
some that
Then you
are,
have to put it back out there.
Yeah, of course.
very, very
That's a
complicated
lot. That's a lot.
to bring back. And the implications of this one, just based upon the numbers that I've seen from finance, where we go to using so much of this, all of the sales and use taxes in such a short amount of time, and have to find a way to cut $6 million worth of expenses. I know where those cuts are coming. I mean, it's either coming from non-sworn or from capital and other things.
Well, I would just
in order to
encourage
pay-
the rest of you to look at the brief that I provided last week. It's unfortunate we're just going off of, a little summary here to argue a policy position, but I'll remind you that the cost of one police officer is about $150,000 to recruit and train, firefighters a little bit more at $175,000. Then you factor in the overtime, which has been a huge conversation on both police and fire. I know for fire, we were really digging in there, but for both police and fire, it's also, yes, our biggest investment every year, whether it's on unappropriated fund balances to take care of overtime, or on the front end as we're budgeting, is for public safety. That's what we do. So from a fiscal conservancy standpoint, recruiting and retaining the people you have is always gonna be more fiscally responsible than this churn and overtime. So right now, overtime's like $10 million. $6 million is less than 10 million in my mind. And you're retaining your officers and hopefully
You're not
moving
gonna make
through.
overtime go to zero, though. That's assuming that
Well,
overtime is
even
going
if
to
you
zero.
don't, I still think we would come in if we had more
Yeah.
officers on.
But 4% compounds upon 4%, just like it does to the positive. If we're saving money in a savings account, this is going to cost more money, because 4% of 4% is more than 4% the next year.
But straight time
And then
is
the next year,
always
and then
cheaper
the-
than overtime. And that's the
Right.
pattern we've been in for like 8 years or 10 years at least.
Yeah, if we could erase overtime, then it may make sense for a period of time, but after a while, the 6 million is going to turn into 12 million, and it's gonna turn into 25 million. And that's what you have to project out. That's how compounding
Well, if we're gonna
works.
project that out, we should project into the retention and cost savings. of
Oh,
having
I'm
more people
not
on
arguing with that.
And
I
not
mean.
paying them time and a half at
Oh,
such a high
oh, yeah.
rate that
No,
we
you
do
have to.
now.
That's why I'm saying that
Yeah.
it just seems like we need more time with this before we rush out and do it. From the comments that I've said previously, that I'm very much in favor of taking care of police, fire, first responders, those people who take care of us, but I also want to do it in the context of not jeopardizing the non-sworn employees, not jeopardizing the other uses of money that we have in City Hall.
I would also just push back, it's not a guaranteed 4%. I mean, it's negotiated, it could be 2%, it could be 1%. It's subject to budget availability, as it would be for our non-sworn and any new divisions or departments we're creating, whether it's sworn or non-sworn. I mean, those are always the factors that we have to put in. I mean, I would just encourage you all to look at the materials that were distributed. It's a little hard to have this conversation with just like a little summary statement here. And I don't. Yeah.
We probably
No, I
should.
know. I mean, for people that are not sure about this
So we're
line of
continuing this
reasoning.
discussion next week too, right? Or,
So, next week on the first, you can put it back on the first.
okay. I think this one needs more discussion, so maybe bring it back, so.
Are there any things you need from us to bring it back next week, or?
No, I just think, well, I would just ask, do your homework and investigate whether investing in retention in this way and asking the voters to, basically compel us to prioritize these things. I mean, the voters could vote no, and then we don't codify it at all. But right
Is there
now-
any way that maybe finance can do a report for us on overtime from the past 5 years?
Like an if this, then that. I think it really.
I have an
Yeah, we have
overtime
that.
from the past, probably 5 years.
Yeah. That
would be
report
good.
that
Okay.
But there needs to be like an if we were retaining people,
Yeah,
past the 7-year mark or 5-year mark or whatever it is where we're losing them. Because there's a cost of replacement,
Right.
there's a cost of recruitment,
Well,
there's a cost of
yeah.
overtime.
And we just heard from Deputy Chief Wolmerhauser that their overtime is done or caused from higher backs.
Mhm.
So what we can do to eliminate, or at least
Lower it.
lower.
Yeah, I
those
think when you have special
callbacks.
events or disasters, you're gonna have overtime, like,
Yeah.
we have to always budget for it,
Right.
but
But I
the
think it-
amount we've been paying for the last several years due to low staffing has been astronomical.
Yeah, no, I've enjoyed the dialogue, but I think that it would be, I mean, it would help some of us see the impact of the budget, at least the last 5 years, I can't even talk, of overtime. Just with sworn employees. I don't know how we would do that with non-sworn.
I only have it for police and fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they negotiate, and
Yeah,
it's
and
not
it is
subject to negotiation language.
Overtime is overtime. It just depends on what this would do with overtime. It's gonna cost more in the overtime that is used because you are paying at a higher rate. But
It's time and a
overtime-
half overtime.
Right, so if you're paying
But then if you're
4% on top, yeah.
Right, that'd be interesting if we knew that breakdown and we could
It's
figure out.
It's hard modeling. It's not
I know.
easy. You got a lot of
Yeah,
assumptions
yeah.
in a spreadsheet.
Yeah, yeah. All right, moving on to the next item, because we just have a few more minutes. Council confirmation of department and division heads. Anybody want to talk about that one?
One point to make, as I was looking closer at this, it occurred to me that the fire department is actually outside the civil service system. So if you want this to include fire chief, which I assume you do, there's one other provision of the charter that we would have to modify as well. It's just adding that confirmation to the provision providing for the appointment of the fire chief.
Like by name, role, we have to do
By
it?
title.
Title.
Okay.
Why are they outside?
Because it's like a different.
They have their own system that's outside civil service. That was part of the charter when it was developed in 1989. That's just how.
Okay,
That's the only position that's outside of the civil service?
that's weird.
Should we just try to fix that rather than accommodate it, or?
It's a whole article of the charter. That would be a big undertaking. We can just add
Okay.
a few words in that provision.
I just hope it doesn't confuse citizens, right? Because then it looks like you're just calling out one particular position.
'Cause I don't think
What
that-
other positions
Carol,
are
we didn't know.
listed? I mean, right now, it's the personnel director and the city attorney that are specifically named.
But at least if the
In the
personnel
current-
director is the HR director, those are both civil service, so they're within that.
Right.
In the
Civil
current
service.
language, but those two titles are currently named specifically, or it says civil service?
There's Title 10, or Article 10, which is civil service, and then fire is in a different one.
Article 11.
Yeah.
Okay. So can you draft that
Oh, sure.
for the next go-around?
Yeah.
Okay, any concerns, debate over that one?
Not from us.
Not from us.
Okay.
Maybe from elsewhere.
I just enjoyed that discussion that you guys were having over the SPIs.
I do have one small question, just so I understand procedurally, kind of, and I think we talked about this a little bit last time. So someone goes through a hiring process or they're like, an internal application process. And then once they're selected as a final candidate, then it comes up to us to have committee discussion. I'm just trying to make sure I understand the cadence, and that we would have a discussion on committee and then we would vote at a 5, is that basically?
We usually do it at a 4 o'clock.
Okay, that's what I was just trying to understand. I just haven't been through one of those before.
There's
There's only one precedent.
There's only been one recent one.
Yeah. Is he in
and
the room with us now?
He's in the room with us now.
It's Jack.
Okay,
sorry. Yeah.
But the mayor, so there's a certification process that's
Okay.
run through HR. And then for a department head, likely it's the mayor's process, which can vary,
Okay.
on what they use to get to their final candidate. And then they send their final candidate to the council. I believe we did handle it at a 4 o'clock. There
I
was
see.
executive session, and then we voted after executive
Okay.
session.
That's helpful, the
at the
executive
board
session
level.
piece. Okay, that's what I was just trying to see what the public facing element of that was. Okay, thank you, that's helpful.
Okay, any other discussion, questions, concerns? Okay, moving on, public safety review and oversight.
We presented on this last week, so I would say the only major significant change from past year's discussions is that it includes public safety as it relates to just law enforcement.
So public safety meeting, fire too.
Fire,
Rescue services.
rescue services,
Hazardous materials,
Yeah.
dispatch, emergency.
Yeah, that's all covered under fire.
yes.
911.
Public safety, animal control.
Yeah. And I'm going to bring this up because the article came out in the Tulsa World a little early. But I have been working with Jack and with Commissioner Roberts on putting together a citizen-led public safety commission led by the city of Tulsa. And it's still in the works. Hope to get a draft to everybody within the next, hopefully, week. I know that we're meeting later this week, so. But it's just to go along with that, but it would be, instead of having one person, it would be citizens having discussions about police, fire, and 911, and adding more transparency to those departments, so.
Are you offering that as a substitute to this charter amendment,
It could.
or as a complement?
We'll just see how the discussion goes with the oversight and see how we end up with the draft with the citizen.
Well, I would just assert and I don't have all the details on yours, but advising is very different than independent oversight. So again, if you look at the materials that were presented, there's very specific ways that it's crafted. We would not be the first city to do it, and certainly not even the first city in Oklahoma at this point. I think when the conversation started with then Mayor Bynum, we would have been the first city in the state to do it, but it's happening across the nation. The Citizen Advisory, or the Civilian Advisory Board, as proposed in the charter, would be a very specific way, not unlike how we do sales tax oversight committee appointments, with representation from districts, confirmation, a very formalized process and procedure. And then, of course, the director would be an independent entity, not reporting or not appointed in the same way that we have a commissioner right now. So it could be complementary to the commissioner. As you know, this commissioner position as it exists today is not in the civil service. The director of review and oversight would be. So there's lots of information in the paperwork that we distributed 2 weeks ago. If you need more information about how Sand Springs and Oklahoma City are doing it, it's on their city websites, how they do it. And then there's national best practices, and Counselor Hall Harper has been studying this for more than 10 years, so if you need a resource, I'm sure she can put you in touch with one that can really explain the impacts.
Is there a fiscal impact to this one? So, in other words, a cost associated?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Do we know what that would be to implement this?
I
I'm
think it's
just
something that
curious.
can be potentially done somewhat in phases, but no, we don't. That's something we would have to work out in the budgeting.
You're setting up an office.
You're setting up
the
an
staff
Right.
support.
But it's obviously a budget dependent on.
I understand, but on all the others, we're looking at costs and
When
budget
GT
impacts.
proposed it in
It
2019,
was
we
It was 500,000.
front-loaded $500,000.
Yeah, it has been budgeted for in the past.
Yeah, in the
Okay.
past.
I didn't know.
We just didn't, we had approached this by ordinance. And I think I had said that before to Council Archie. You can establish, the mayor tomorrow can do an executive action and establish an office like this structure. It could be established by ordinance, it could be established by charter, it could be established by a petition initiative into the charter. So there's there's
Different
different
ways to do it.
pathways to do it, but when we first visited this concept in January of 2019, it was our budget retreat, and then Mayor Bynum asked for a budget appropriation to go into the
First.
budget first, as we worked on like an ordinance policy to
got it.
establish.
Got it.
Yep,
Just curious.
yeah, we've been going around this since.
There's a lot of ways to get there.
Since
but-
2019. But again, putting it out to the voters is just another way that it lives beyond any elected officials and codifies it for, longer.
Yeah, I was just asking, since we're
Yeah,
looking
no, of
at
course.
budget impacts on all of these.
Yeah.
It
Just
certainly
thought-
has to be considered, but yeah.
question.
I think the cost of implementing the program is minuscule in compared to what it would bring in trust and accountability.
Well, and we
in
don't
public
need to
safety.
revisit all the settlements that we've been,
Well, yeah.
which it
and
wouldn't
so-
eliminate all of that, but it would go a long way, I think, to helping mitigate some of the big violation lawsuits that we've had to unfortunately make big decisions about. And that we've heard dozens and dozens of speakers come
Yeah.
before us
And I don't think that's over with.
to speak about, not just this year, I mean,
Mhm.
ongoing.
Mhm.
I have a question on what you're saying. How would your review board be established? Would it have to be a charter amendment or an ordinance or?
Ordinance,
Okay, so it would be an ordinance, which is different than the charter amendment. Okay.
it would be an ordinance, so.
Yeah, the charter, what we're deciding on April 15th, Counselor, is what on this list, we as a body, a majority of us want to send to officially be finalized and then get on the ballot
Right.
for then the voters to approve. So even if we approve it for the ballot, the voters have to approve it. And then the governor has to sign it. So it's a much longer
It's a
process.
long process.
So,
Yeah.
when we visited oversight by our ordinance before, it got very politicized very fast and undermined kind of the intent and what would ultimately have been accomplished, so.
All right, the next one is council salary.
Yeah, I mentioned this, brought this up to Jack a little while ago, but the recommendation is just to change from CPI to AMI. Other than that, nothing will change.
So what would be is there an idea of how much that would
AMI
impact the?
roughly was
It would
what?
go to the
40?
AMI of the city of Tulsa.
Because right now, it's currently,
No, it's
CPI.
CPI based.
right,
Well-
It's not a flat.
No, it's a number, it's a set number times CPI increases, so that 32,000 buys the same amount of goods and services every year from the year it's set,
Right.
supposedly.
Supposedly.
AMI is a totally different number.
Yeah, it is.
It's a
It's a
different
living
index.
wage, AMI.
Yeah.
It's a living wage index.
Yeah, it's the medium income
And I
wage.
thought this one had something to do with inflation.
Consumer price index, yeah.
Yeah, past year discussions, when we talked about it 2 years ago, the discussion I recall,
Well, it
that
says-
it was more based on inflation and cost of goods or something. And I just think AMI is more appropriate and certainly more people understand.
well, it says based on changes in the CPI.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I would use this as,
Yeah, if you look at the language, where his point has to do with like the amount of increase.
Ms.
It might be
Davis or
helpful
Mr.
to
Blair,
have the
do you-
charter amendment language.
is-
Instead of just a
What we did
abbreviation.
last 2 years ago.
Right.
So you've always had just a base salary in there. What you did 2 years ago was had
Index.
increases been received since the last time this was increased. It would have been, based on CPI, about 32,000. 2 years ago, there was a discussion of what should that base be? Should it be that 32,000 based on CPI, or should it be AMI, which at that time was about 54-ish thousand, I don't know what it is right now. And so it was determined that you put forward that 32 with CPI increases. The other idea that was put on the table a couple years ago was start at that 54 with potential CPI increases. So those were the 2 ideas talked about 2 years ago.
Okay.
So, Council, to clarify, your proposal is to set it at AMI, and as AMI changes over time, so
Yes.
it counts as up, okay.
Whatever AMI
It
is.
goes up or down.
Yeah, up or down.
Okay. Any questions, concerns on that one?
Out of curiosity, is the idea to have it, because I know CPI is like a nationally set number, the idea is to have it be more like locally, like a hyper-locally relevant number, is that the?
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to check, because I just kind of wanted to verbalize that to us too, that key difference is how locally, like, specific and contextually relevant it is to what a living wage is in the city, so I can
Yeah,
see why
and
that's.
income, yeah.
Yeah, compared to CPI risk, where like this broad national based thing that could be felt differently across the country. Okay.
All right. Then item number 4, we're adjourned. Give 5 minutes, come back for the 2:30.